So today's speaker, we have Randy Leiker. He is a veteran of the insurance and financial industry. He has been serving as a contractor market for over 7 years. He currently serves as a senior business development manager at eBacon, prevailing wage software company that helps construction companies with fringe, trust management, payroll, and reporting to save administrative wages and taxes. He's also a graduate of the MBA and has spent over 20 years in a variety of leadership positions within the insurance and financial service industry. A fun fact from him, he was born and raised on a farm in western Kansas, and he also grew up loving the outdoors and the Chiefs football team. So please welcome our speaker today, Randy.
Thank you very much, Faustine. Appreciate that. And yes, definitely a great time to be a Chiefs fan for sure. Go Kansas City. And bringing back 20 of the 22, I think we're in good shape for a repeat, hopefully, from that standpoint. So with that being said, we're really excited to be here to talk with you today about preparing your business, because the reality is, as we start to reopen from the current pandemic, now is the perfect time to use this downtime to prepare your business to hit the pedal to the metal as we go forward from here. Please do note that we are taking questions about the presentation, so please don't hesitate to put that in the chat function and the Q&A function at the very bottom from here. So first and foremost, as we get started, we really hope you and your family are happy, healthy, and everyone is staying safe that's out there. With that being said as well, our goal for today is to help you really look at this crisis as an opportunity to improve your business by A, asking the right questions, and B, giving you some practical tips on how you can use this crisis as a blessing in disguise for you and your business. We're going to focus predominantly on the 7 key areas on the screen, ranging from your business plan and mission to marketing 101. So let's just jump right on into it from there. First and foremost, this crisis is not new. Yes, the pandemic is new and different, and it's scary from that standpoint. But the reality is crises are not new to the world. I used to be a financial advisor, like as you mentioned, and we were always taught that the market resets about every 7.5 years, which is defined by about a 20% correction in the S&P. And the average recovery takes a little over 3 years. In fact, did you know that there's been 11 recessions since the Great Depression, all the way to the Great Recession that was back in 2007 and 2008? I was in your exact shoes. I was a financial advisor with my own office, small business owner back in 2007. So I experienced a crisis like this firsthand, and it's not easy. It's challenging, it's scary, it's apprehensive. But when looking at things from the opposite standpoint of things, there are some true opportunities that come out of this from here. So, my experience in starting it new from that standpoint was a tremendous opportunity in the beginning. It was great. It took off, was having tons of success, and then the market tanked. And then, oh my gosh, it was trying to find anybody to talk to was the most difficult thing in the world. You maybe have experienced that exact same thing. So think back to, for those of you who have been around for a while, think back to your own experiences. What was it that caused you to struggle during that time, or what caused you to succeed at that point in time? For those of you who are new to the situation, what is it that scares you the most about that? I can tell you from my experience, not having the people to talk to, so I get the numbers that I needed to hit my goals, was a tremendous scare for me from a financial standpoint of things from here. Now, before we talk about steps to take, let's quickly remind ourselves that there is a common pattern to how our economy responds and recovers from these crises, from dollars being put into the economy by the government, to stimulus related work, to work that comes out of current and new clients that are ready to go. The steps are very same that it was back in all of these crises prior. The bottom line, those who are most successful don't wait for the economy or for the government. They are proactive and have prepared to really accelerate out of this curve. So let's look at the 7 steps. Step number 1 is to really look at your business plan and mission. Encourage you to start with your mission plan from here. Why did you get into the business? Like I mentioned before, times will be difficult and probably have been difficult for many of you. And it's going to be very important to remember why you do what you do to give you that little extra boost of energy to power through all of this. In addition, many times your mission has kind of changed, and what you're trying to do from a vision standpoint has also changed. Now is the time to really realign your operation to make sure that you're firing on all engines. Secondly is your business plan. Many of us have discovered weaknesses or true opportunities within the current situation. So, are you reliant on a few key clients? That was my biggest mistake when I was a financial advisor. My top 10 clients produced 90% of my revenue. Way too hot top heavy. I desperately needed to diversify, and when I started to, unfortunately for me, it was a little bit too late. So think back to your experiences. How are you doing with regards to that? Are you out of balance with any of those key functions? Are you too reliant on a vendor or a supplier in your offices? The 80-20 rule continues to ring true. And so use that as a guide. If you're off balance, like I was, where 10% was giving me 90% of my revenue, let's look at some ways that we can impact business going forward. So from a client standpoint, we'll talk about networking and marketing a little bit later, but the big one for me here is asking for referrals. Dale Carnegie always said that 91% of the customers there are willing to give referrals, but only 11% of the folks ask for them. So people want to help other people succeed in business and in life. So are you asking your top clients for referrals? Are you making sure that they're satisfied and providing the best resources? How about employees? Are you feel like you're at the mercy of a couple of key employees? Maybe you can expand and add employees from that. This is a perfect time to compete for the best and the brightest. Create relationships with apprenticeship programs and other trade schools. Maintain relationships with those workers that may have left for another position, and the grass is not greener on the other side. But what happens when you can't afford to hire more? That means you need to be more creative to retain your best by bolstering benefit programs. Maybe it's offering key life insurance or doing company matches, or even just adding brand new benefits to the mix. Or maybe it's as simple as creating a leadership path or a growth opportunity for these employees so they can grow with you as an organization to reap the benefits of their hard work. Some of the folks that we work with are even offering stock ownership opportunities right now in the marketplace. So don't be afraid to be creative with how you're looking at your people. Looking at your supply chain, are there ways that you can look at it, alternative materials that will save you some money, but also give you a chance to expand? My friend actually just ran into this exact situation. He owns a shirt printing company up here in north part of Phoenix. And with all the canceled graduations out there, he recognized the chance to develop those yard signs that are going up in there, the ones that were recognizing all the 2020 graduates. Unfortunately, because he didn't have a reliable supplier with the signs that he needed to compete, he actually lost out on a 5,000 sign job and a big chunk of revenue at a time where he desperately needed it the most right now at the moment. From a service standpoint, eBacon is was created out of this exact situation. Our ownership recognized the need to enhance our platform to serve contractors who do public works projects, but he didn't stop there. He saw a way to expand our services into the general contractor market, rolling projects up into one centralized dashboard and creating a more efficient system and process for contractors. So think back to your supply chain and services. Are there ways that you can expand or diversify? There's tons of opportunities out there, but it all starts with asking the right questions. Step number 2 is to relook and revamp your processes and procedures. This crisis has forced companies to furlough employees or lay them off altogether. Work from home has become prevalent, and technology has had to be embraced because of all of that. So in some cases, and simply put, you may have to do more with less or adjust your duties because they may have been eliminated or shifted altogether. However you've been impacted, technology is here to stay and must be embraced. So working from home has shown that as a major weakness for many of the businesses that are out there. If you are one of them, how are you overcoming that? Or if you wanted to improve an area or two, how have you looked at your system needs and resources? Because now is the time to make that happen. We hear this all the time that I don't want to interrupt or disrupt my day-to-day engagement and day-to-day interactions. But the reality is technology is here to stay, and now is the perfect time to look at those. So go through your business. Ask the questions above. You know, cash is key right now. So how are you managing your accounts receivable? Are there better ways to maintain that cash flow? Many companies also don't realize how much they truly pay their employees, or are very lax about how they do timekeeping and verifying the time for these individuals, which causes substantial overpayments. So time and attendance and payroll processes. Are there ways for you to look at and implement systems to be able to improve that? When was the last time you looked at your HR policies? You know, including the data security that comes out of that. In many cases, that's something that's kind of in that corner of your desk that gets dust off when there are issues. Well, according to the CNBC, 43% of all hacking attacks small businesses, costing them on average $200,000, which causes the closure of 60% of those small businesses, all because somebody didn't dust off their HR policies and look at data protection and security for their business. So don't be a casualty. Ask these questions. Now is the perfect time to look at your processes and procedures and see if there's ways for you to implement efficiencies as you go forward in business. Step number 3 is talking to critical vendors. We all know that success is really dependent upon the reliability of your vendor network. If you have somebody who doesn't give you the materials you need in the very beginning, that impacts how the services and products that you provide to your customers. Vendors can definitely be your biggest enemy or your best friend, and it all starts with having positive and proactive communications. Understand where they are, because in many cases, they're being impacted by this crisis the same way you are. So raw materials not getting to them on time, or having a shortage thereof, or maybe a potential pricing spike that's going to impact them, which of course, at the end of the day, we all know rolls downhill and will impact your business in the future. So the more you understand what your vendors are going through, the more prepared you'll be to protect your business long term going forward. So, step 4, look for ways to streamline. Look for ways to partner with your suppliers and vendors. Negotiate with them in cases where you need to have cash flow. So short-term payments can benefit both you and the supplier in many cases from there. Take advantage of some of the supplier discounts for prompt payments and for other perks that come along with that, which will help you pass along those savings to your customers, which creates that, again, positive cash flow for both of your organizations. Is there technology that you can use that will help streamline workflows or to create data shares that will benefit both suppliers as well as you? All tons of opportunities in working side by side with your vendors. In addition to streamlining, how about streamlining your own organization? Are there some things that you can do to save money today while more effectively using the resources that you have to your advantage? Think about your inventory and how you manage that inventory. In some cases, maybe you have too much inventory and a lot of that cash is locked up in that inventory that's there. Or maybe you have a ton of space that you could use and buy more inventory, which will save your costs in the long term. Don't be afraid to be creative with how you use your inventory management side of things and really monitoring your cash flow. Project it out. If you do decide to reduce marketing, as an example, remember not to reduce the marketing efforts that go along with that. And we'll talk more about marketing here in just a second. But do take a critical eye to some of those things that you can cut. Unnecessary trips or outings. Maybe some of the conferences that you had attended in the past may have to go by the wayside for now. But be careful to take a critical eye to those things that you cut, because you only want to cut those things that won't hurt the quality of your products and services. Be very careful of that. Also be careful with not cutting the simple things, the things that can really impact your employees' morale, like monthly birthday cakes or luncheons that you bring in for your staff, because that is step number 5, reconnecting with your employees. With a 19% unemployment rate in the United States, we know businesses and employees have both been impacted financially. You're stressed as an owner and manager, but guess what? So is your staff. They may be uncertain about their job. They may be experiencing physical and mental issues that come with that, which is also impacting their productivity. When was the last time you actually checked in on your employees' mental health? Do you know what they're going through right now? Did you know that during the Great Depression, that's just an example, the suicide rate rose by 30%, and 3 times as many people were admitted to state mental hospitals? Several studies have shown similar trends post-Great Recession back in the 2007-2008 market. And in all likelihood, we'll see more of the same post-COVID as well. Why is this important? Because their ability to function impacts your ability to operate and recover. Take the time now to learn how the crisis is impacting them. I'm sitting here at my home doing this webinar from home, and I'm looking across and seeing my kids doing homeschooling right now. All of this stuff has an impact on how your employees do it. So how do you do this? Well, it's with frequent and transparent and very two-way communication. Keep that open door policy wide open and be proactive with how you communicate with them. Encourage them positively. Let them in on the plans that you have to survive and thrive post-crisis. Help them be a part of the solution. Allow them to help you be a part of that solution. Now, we know that this is made even harder in today's environment with all the social distancing and a remote workforce, but please do take the time to check in. Your people are going to love you for it, and you'll gain a very loyal following when you look at and do these things. If you're having trouble managing a remote workforce, one of the things we'll be sending to you post this webinar is our guide to managing and leading remote teams. So by all means, please dig into that, and you'll receive that again post-webinar. The bottom line, really understand how your employees are being impacted by this crisis. Step number 6 is to reconnect with your contacts. Your employees and vendors are definitely one thing, but how are your customers being impacted, both current and former? Not to even mention your centers of influence. We're all part of BNI groups or networking organizations. Now is the perfect time to really check in and just say hello and offer support. Give them the resources that they need to be successful in today's crisis. Help them through this. Do not try to sell them something. That's the biggest mistake people can make. Don't try to push services or sell products. Now is not the time for that. Simply connect with them to better understand their pain points and find ways to serve them. How often are you supposed to communicate? There are exceptions to every cadence set out there. So bottom line, use your common sense. Be aware of reduced email opens. Be aware of reduced engagement and increased spam reports or even some undescribes. And in fact, just this morning, I unsubscribed from a company because they've sent me 5 emails in the last 24 hours, all trying to get me to buy their online services. I could just tell that they didn't care about me and what I was going through. I was just on their list. So connect with your people. Your goal should be to stay in front of them, create goodwill, position yourself to be top of mind when they're ready to. Encourage them, help them up, be active on the social medias because that's what's going to take going forward. Like we talked about before, sometimes the first thing you want to do when you reduce budgets or to stop selling is to reduce your marketing. Any changes you make to processes and procedures or budgetary, the one thing you don't want to do is stop marketing. The biggest mistake companies make in crises in general is retreating into their shell. They stop being in front of their customers. They stop being in the environment, in the economy. Out of sight means out of mind, and you can't afford to be invisible. In fact, now is the exact time to ramp up those efforts. Share articles, reports, statistics. Give your 2 cents on the situation. Comment on the posts of others. Just get out there, leverage those social networks to establish yourself as the go-to in your field. You may have to change some of your tactics, but bottom line, don't disappear. Now is the time to build your brand. So use the slowdown to retool marketing with cost-effective tactics. Keep your messages short and sweet. Keep it positive. Follow a format like above. Send information that's not sales related or directly related to you. Send links to your site for information. Have a marketing call to action. Use some of the free platforms that are out there, because marketing does not need to be hard or expensive. Use the free platforms that are out there. Use social marketing to boost those ads and create that. Google ads are user friendly and user and budget friendly as you look forward to things from here. Publish and share content frequently. There's so much information out there. Find the helpful and insightful articles that will impact your customers and centers of influence. Share this content. Use and leverage the relationships you have with the associations and networks. Make sure that you're on their mailing lists and look for opportunities to stay active with them. Show the support of their online web events. There are tremendous opportunities and tremendous ways to find additional content as well. And so use those associations and networks to your advantage to help you grow your business while you develop and support them and build relationships with them. We've got a ton more tips and ideas around marketing that we'll also send to you in a guide after this called Marketing Tips for Small Businesses. Also look for upcoming webinars that we have that support these type of events from here. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is crises are times for companies to regroup, retool, and re-engage. This is like no other. It's been an interesting time for all of us with the lockdown and the stay-at-home orders and whether businesses can open back up. Faustina and I were talking at the beginning with just opening up from going out to dinners and how companies are struggling to give that confidence to these folks. The best way of interacting with your customers and your community is to be out there and let them know about all the things that you're doing to make sure that you're coming out of the crisis. Let them know that you are going to be around post. This COVID pandemic is no different than any of the others that we've ran into in the past. We will survive this, and as we partner together and people helping people and businesses helping businesses, we're here to support your efforts just as much as you're there to support your community's efforts. So if you're looking for additional info or resources, including the just released 11-page paycheck protection program, rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Loan forgiveness program. We have a lot of these resources on our website, tagpay.com and eBacon.com. Our mission is here to partner and serve as small business owners like you. So please don't hesitate to reach out if we can do anything to help you as you go through this particular crisis. Now's the time for questions from you. So please don't hesitate. Let me know if you have questions. We'd love to address them here.
Yes, so if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and just type them in the chat option or the Q&A, and Randy can answer them. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes here. So it looks like we have a question from Rosa. So Randy, you talked a little bit about not cutting out the employee incentives, such as the luncheons and like birthday cakes. What do you recommend in cutting out in any of the employee activities if we need to?
Great question. My recommendation would be to really look at the reception from your employees. And I'll give you a couple of examples from my past. I worked for a company in the past where we did a Friday breakfast every Friday. In the beginning, it was tremendous and it was well received, and it did exactly what we were hoping to do by engaging the employees and really making it kind of a tight-knit group. But over time, it became very stale, and it became one of those that was just an expected deal from leadership. That would be a perfect one to cancel for right now, because it's not adding to morale. It's becoming a expectation, which unfortunately puts the burden on you as an ownership, versus something like a birthday lunch or a birthday cake that you bring in once a month. That is something that is looked forward to. So everybody's seen the Office episode, I'm sure, where was it Jim who tried to cut out the birthday cake celebration for each of the individuals, and Michael Scott came back and implemented a cake for each individual one, and everybody found out how great and how many people really enjoyed that personalized touch. That's the stuff that you don't want to impact from here. So look at it from all the opportunities where you spend money on your employees, and look at it from that perspective. Where are the ones that are really impacting or would impact employee morale negatively? And those are the ones that you would want to protect at all costs. Thank you for your question, Rosa.
Looks like we have one from Marilyn. Now that we're working remotely, do you have any recommendations for the things you can do virtually to recognize your staff?
Love that question as well. I've seen some really creative things done, from happy hours, and I'm using the air quotes, even though you can't see the air quotes, to getting together virtually to be able to celebrate those type of things. I've also heard of situations where they send fruit baskets to the employee. Now, the tough part about that is, of course, the only person who knows is that employee, but still it's that nice touch. It's using the vendors that are out there to try and recognize these employees from that. being remote is really difficult to build that team camaraderie from here. Maybe it's a situation where when you get together and have weekly meetings together, you recognize somebody who's done something from a virtual standpoint of things. Recognize the extra efforts that people are going through to go the extra mile in using the technology to your advantage. But great question. It's a really difficult time from here, but those are a couple of things that I've heard of companies doing in the past.
Great, thank you, Randy. We have a question from Sarah. What would you recommend, and how would you recommend companies who are working with vendors that have been affected by COVID-19 that are currently suffering? What is that relationship, and how we can build that and how we can help them because of what's happening with COVID-19 and their business suffering?
Yep, I love that, and everybody is in a very similar boat. So the first thing I would recommend is having that empathy. Understand that they're struggling just as much as you may be. So it's asking the right questions and digging layers deeper to really truly understand what their biggest pain points are. Maybe it is suppliers that are impacting them. Maybe it is cash flow, and they just simply don't know what to do. Or even to the point of, since we work with contractors as an example, employees, because I'll give you an example of this. We had one of our customers who was able to work for a while on a project until one of the subcontractors' workers came up with COVID on the job site, and the government shut down the entire project. So now that GC, who may be a key component or a key partner in your supply chain, is being very negatively impacted because they can't work. So they've had to lay people off. And the challenge is really understanding what their pain points are to find creative ways to create that win-win synergy from here. So it really starts with having the empathy that they're going through the same situations you are, and then asking really good questions to help dig into it. Now, you may run into a situation where you may find that you don't have a great relationship with that supplier or vendor. And that will tell you volumes as well, because at the end of the day, your responsibility is to protecting your business. And so maybe that's a sign where you have to start looking at other options to fill that supplier and vendors needs from here. But it all starts with being very proactive and very positive communication in the very beginning. Great question.
Thank you, Randy. We also have a question from Jesse. You talked a little bit about emailing e-newsletters with content. How many times a week do you recommend emailing to our customers with content?
I would say no more than 2 at the most, because and I gave the example of myself. 5 times in 24 hours is just ridiculous. It didn't provide me any value, and in fact, it turned me off very, very quickly. So the key is how much and what type of content you're wanting to communicate. Maybe you switch it up, where one communication is what you guys are doing to overcome the COVID virus, and what are some things that you're doing to protect them, where the other one is more industry resources. Maybe it's and I'll use an example for us is there's a lot of data that we get every single day around COVID. We all see it every single day, but what can we do to provide value to those contractors in my particular world? And so we send a newsletter that will have or share data that will help them identify potential job opportunities. And so maybe that's what you end up doing, is coming up with your own cadence, where one is talking about how the COVID is impacting you and what you're doing to resolve that, while the second one during that week is really designed to give suggestions to your clients on things that they can do to impact and improve their businesses. It really depends upon the organization you work for and that, but I would say no more than a couple times a week. You know, other thing is to share success stories. People love to hear the success of other entities from here. So as you're out there talking with other companies, share some of those best practices. Really kind of become that consultant to your customers and centers of influence as well.
Great, thank you. There's a follow-up question to that question. What is the average open rate do you think is successful for a small business owner?
We we go round and round with that, and if you're shooting for anywhere in that 15 to 25% open rate, that's pretty solid. If you get anything greater than that, you rock, and call me because I want to know what you're doing. Anything less than that, if your data is not clean, or if you're working with, or if you're a newer business just trying to get the word out, it's not uncommon to dip below that. So if you use kind of that 20% or that 15 to 25% range as an ideal, that's going to get you pretty close. Anything above that, you're awesome. Anything below that, may want to look at some of the information you're sending.
Great, thank you. We'll just look and see if we have any more. But it looks like we answered all of them. Thank you once again, Randy, for taking time out of your busy day to present our webinar today. Appreciate all the information and knowledge you shared with all of our attendees today. For those of you who have attended our webinars, this webinar was recorded, so it will be available on events.bbcommunity.org. You can view past webinars and also sign up for additional webinars, and we will email you a link to this webinar that's recorded, and also the additional tools that Randy talked about as well. But thank you everyone for attending. Thank you again for presenting, Randy. Please stay safe out there, everybody, and have a great day.